Hey guys, my name is Tetos and in this video I'm going to tell you how to play Thresh like Madlife. I will talk about recommended runes, masteries and champion combos, as well as a general game plan, how to play the laning phase and team fights. This won't be a complete support guide, but a collection of tips and key factors as always. And time codes and additional resources can be found in the description below, so let's dive right into it. On Thresh, Madlife almost always goes Ignite and Flash. Ignite of course for the bot lane pressure for improved all-ins and stronger roams, and Flash for flash hooks or flash flays, lantern plays, as well as obviously escaping or closing the gap to the enemy team. Madlife basically never picked Exhaust, so that's why I won't cover it in this video. For runes, these are two basic Thresh rune pages, nothing special. One thing I want to note is that he's running one extra 80 quint, which not many people do on Thresh, and if you're using page 1 or page 2, it doesn't really matter. The difference for him doesn't depend on the matchup or the lane. He goes for the first page whenever he's on his main account and the second page when he's on his Smurf. So it's quite strange, but that's just what he's doing, and there isn't really anything matchup dependent or something like this when you're picking the rune page. For Masteries, Madlife always goes 0, 9 and 21 on Thresh. It's basically a very standard melee support page with the improved recall mastery and movement speed over, for example, trinket range and flat mana. So it's a very strong roam support page basically, which also, has improved recall because he recalls so frequently. For the skill order, it's also very standard for Thresh, nothing extraordinary here, so he goes for E, Q, W at level 1, 2 and 3, except when they are invading or sometimes getting invaded on, then he goes Q or W depending on the situation at level 1 when necessary. Otherwise, you max R, Q, W, E, except for the early game where you just put 3 points into E when possible. So at level 1, 4 and 5 basically, as you can see here, you put points into E and then you max the QWE. When building Thresh, Madlife always starts with the Relic Shield, 3 Biscuits, 1 Mana Potion and a Warding Totem. He always rushes Mobility Boots first and then Sidestone, as well as of course replacing his Trinket with the Sweeping Lance. So for your first major item you're getting either Righteous Glory, Mikael's Crucible or Face of the Mountain depending on the enemy team. Now get the other two first item choices as I listed them here as second and third item. You get Glory first usually if you're not behind or your carries are getting destroyed by CC, because then of course you get the Mikael's Crucible, and Face of the Mountain first only usually if you can't really use the Glory for engaging or your team can't use it and the enemy team has no CC, then you can get the Face of the Mountain first. You upgrade your trinket as early as possible, usually around level 9 to 10, but don't get it immediately if it would delay another big item purchase. Don't forget to buy green wards because you won't rush a Sidestone early. Always get pink wards if possible to ward the map. Get biscuits and mana potions as needed. For situational items you can get either Frozen Heart, Banner of Command or Locket of the Iron Solari, because these are very powerful aura items, especially if your team can't or won't build them, you get them. For your full build, of course, you then have Mobility Boots usually into Sidestone, Righteous Glory, Mikael's Crucible, Face of the Mountain, Pink Ward and the Oracle Lens. For your boot enchant you usually don't get anything except for defending the base, then you get Home Guards, and very rarely you get Captain or Distortion enchants, but usually you don't get them at all. Now onto the game plan. The first point is very important: play to win the game and not the lane. Many people make the mistake of staying in lane or recalling for no reason when they could make a roam play, roam to another lane, put some deep wards into the enemy jungle or something like that. So don't just play to win the lane, win the game. Then we have Rush level 2 and 6 of course, because Thresh has very strong power spikes at these levels, so you can abuse that for all-ins and getting kills. Next up, you need to warn and ward for your AD carry, because if you're roaming a lot you can't just abandon him because he will feel neglected and probably feed, especially in lower elos. Next up, opportunities to roam mid and top. You can't just blindly roam these lanes, to these lanes especially, for no reason. You need to look for opportunities when a lane is gankable and when you can actually get something out of the roam, otherwise you're just giving up pressure bot lane. Most supports just ward their own lanes, but if you're roaming heavily then you can and should ward for other lanes as well, so they can play better to their advantage and maybe carry the game from their lane. Next up, of course, denying vision is very important, and you can see it on Madlife's Thresh play. He buys so many pink wards each and every game. He often delays his build just to get another pink ward or two, and rushed oracles of course very early whenever possible. And lastly, if the game goes to late game, Thresh with this build is a little bit squishy, so you can't go in all the time and play super aggressive as in the early game. You need to maybe play more reserved and defensively and try to peel in the late game. Let's talk about some Thresh combos, because he was the first support to be one of the true carries in the bottom lane, and he's a very strong and versatile kit. So first up we have the flash hook, which is just using flash and then the hook to get a very long ranged catch. Basically, you can also cast the hook first if you want and immediately flash, similar to Alistair flash Q or Q flash, which works both ways. For the flash flay, you have to note that it's actually not easy to pull off, and you have to practice these, because you have to flash in one direction with the mouse cursor, then quickly move the mouse backwards and, you know, flay the enemy backwards. Also for the lantern flash or flash lantern, which you can use to extend the range of the lantern, it's not really easy to pull off, and you have to know the exact time when you have to flash, because otherwise you flash too late or too early and, you know, the ally won't travel with you. Now for the EQ combo, it's not really that difficult of a combo, of course, as the others shown before, but you definitely want to, if possible, land the flay first and then hook, because a slow target is of course way easier to hook, and it's just a very standard, usually at level 2 all-ins combo that you can pull off throughout the game and even combine it with the flash E combo. For the all-in combo we have a standard QRE ignite combo, but of course you can choose to ignite earlier if possible, and also in lane of course you would probably ignite earlier than at the end of the combo, because then the enemy has time to flash away. But in general you want to hook a target, then cast the ultimate, it takes some time to activate, and then flay the target into the walls of the box, and then of course ignite auto attack and get the kill for your team, or lantern somebody in so he can get the kill. Let's talk about how to abuse Thresh's laning phase or early game now. Of course, at first in the early game you want to start with the warding totem and use the warding totem, as you can see here, for the jungle invades or to counter jungle invades. Then, you know, standard starts are usually Gromp or Crux, so you help the jungler and don't be afraid to take a couple of hits, which you can reach and back up with the relic shield procs. At level 1 and 2 you definitely want to poke the enemy down with your empowered auto attacks with E, and maybe even try to flay and hook them to get a kill, but be careful, because this can really go wrong, and if you miss your abilities, basically you overexpose yourself and can take a lot of damage in return and really lose the pressure. Bottom lane brush control is very important, and Thresh really abuses the fog of war and brushes heavily with flays and hooks and tries to get a kill, so use this to try to snowball the game and the lane. With relic shield you have to practice your auto attacks of course, because missing big minions, especially the cannon minion, can really tilt yourself and the AD carry. Whenever you and your ADC get pushed under your own turret, it's important to know how to help him last hit as Thresh, because it's quite tricky actually with the empowered E, and you have to practice it and help with abilities even sometimes to get more CS for your ADC. If you're trying to carry a solo queue game on Thresh, you definitely want to roam very heavily throughout the game and very early too. So in this jungle invade, which was set up with a couple of wards earlier, you can see how he really CCs the enemy well, and with the Tremor Sense from Rek'Sai of course they get an easy Gragas pickoff here with the finish from Rek'Sai. But it's not only that, also of course mid lane and top lane ganks and roams specifically, which are very easy to pull off sometimes but very hard in other cases. So for this Karthos gank here, you can see how the three work together, get a very nice clear kill, and it really messes with your head if you're mid laner, and at minute 4 you get ganked by the jungler and the bottom lane support. So even if this continuously happens, you really tilt hard, and it can really snowball a game, not only from the gold but also from the psyche of the players. For the top lane of course you can also roam at level 2 as early as this, and use it of course to snowball the top laner. Being flexible with your warding is very important on Thresh support, so you can see here some standard brush wards, but also another one at the crux here. Because if you're against an enemy jungler which goes invisible, such as Rengar or Evelynn, you can really use this to your advantage and see them when they clear the jungle and then track their patterns and paths. Let's take a look at two teamfighting clips. The first one features a lot of map movements as well as contributions by Thresh, so you can see in the early stages of the fight that the enemy team backs off because it's a 2v3, turns into a 3v3, nice lantern save here, followed by a flash flay into hook combo, followed by Maokai flanking, so it's a 4v3 for the blue team right now, and it really allows them to snowball the fight, get another nice hook here, into a kill, into a 3-for-1, when everything is said and done. So really nice team fight there. Let's take a look at how to peel correctly in a team fight. As you can see throughout the fight, Graves gets saved multiple times. First off with the lantern, then when Rengar comes in with the pink ward, Flay into hook. So he's still alive after all this time. And you can see Twisted Fate teleporting in, and another nice Flay, and later on a hook secures them. Another nice kill with the help of Victor. Gravity field into, of course, Graves burst. Another 3 for nothing, even though Maokai wasn't even in the fight. Now when playing Thresh, it's important to be able to land all your abilities, but even so, Madlife, who is known for his godlike hooks, misses, flays and hooks all the time in solo queue as well. As you can see in these clips that sometimes even the predictions go wrong, and even though you wanted to do a Madlife play, a Madlife hook, you just miss the enemy and you give up the pressure, you don't get anything for it. But there is, of course, as always, as I said, for the Lee Sin guide, a way to improve your skill shot accuracy. The easiest is to just wait for other people to land there, easier to land CC, and then follow up with your hook into Flays. As you can see in this clip, the Gragas body slam comes in, and then the hook lands way easier, no way Rengar can dodge that, and they get the kill. Thresh is known for his strong early game, especially at level 2 and 3, because with the Flay, Hook and Ignite, of course, he does a lot of damage instantly. So it's just something to be careful and be aware about when you're playing with or against a Thresh. Even though Thresh is known for his aggressive play, he's also very good at saving allies, of course with the Lantern. And you really can see how Flash Lanterns, throwing it at the correct location really helps. And in this case, even though 4 people camped or ganked the bottom lane, only 1 died. For vision and warding, you can see that when you roam a lot, you definitely can help the other lanes out. For example, here the top lane, of course, gets a lot of help and vision control with Thresh's help. Next up we have a warding spree, which just shows how you can move around quickly, use everything you have, recall another time, and then get the wards back you just used, just in case, you know, somebody sweeps them, or in this case the pink ward. Also don't get baited by pink wards, it just happens so many times in solo queue. If you see that the enemy team could be near, just back off. Now for the super deep wards, as I call this one, once the turrets are down, the outer turrets, you just have to adapt and be flexible throughout the game with your warding, as in this clip, put out the wards behind the enemy lines. As I said in the game plan, early oracles, lands and pink wards are essential to winning a game, because as you can see here, with the normal lands he wouldn't have gotten any ward, but with the oracle lands and Rek'Sai's help, of course, they get 2 wards which wouldn't have been swept otherwise. And of course pink wards necessary, as you can see here, is set up for dragons, objectives, anything basically, to really help secure these objectives. Of course, we also often want to set up for a nice hook from Fog of War, so in this clip you can see trinket abuse to get rid of any potential wards, but there aren't any right here. So nice hook, and a collapse by 5 people actually allows them to get a free kill on Victor, who even blows all his summoners. As we all know that every top laner is running teleport right now in this meta, it's your job as a support to ward correctly, so you allow them to basically do these teleport plays, as you can see in this clip. Even though you're collecting souls for armor, you're really getting squishy the longer the game goes, and you can see, like in this clip, that you really get caught out easily, so be careful. Before I let you off the hook and end the video basically, I will give you 3 simple TLDR tips if you haven't even watched the video for some reason. First up, roams win games. Secondly, you live and die by your ability to land your spells. And lastly, you really are a squishy support in the late game, and you aren't really a tank with this build and with this playstyle, so be careful and extra careful in late game team fights. Welcome to the end screen, you've made it once again. I hope you enjoyed watching this episode. Also, thanks for liking and sharing this video, of course. On the right hand side at the top you can see the previous Play Like a Pro episode about how to play Lee Sin like TIP Rush. And also down below, of course, there is a link to the playlist where you can find every single episode I've made so far. I hope you have a great holidays, a great vacation. Summer is pretty hot right now, 35 degrees right now, and I'm kind of starting to sweat, so I have to keep this short, but I still want to say that I'm trying to make 1 episode per week, in the summer at least, so I hope you enjoy these videos, this series, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching, until next time, bye bye.